things happen? Anybody have some good news to share?
Yeah, I got moved.
You got moved. That's the best thing and the worst thing that's happened to you this week. You ever have the best thing and the worst thing be the same thing?
Yes.
What's the best thing that has ever happened to you? And you know, the good things that happen to us, that's what we share, isn't it? I mean, if something's really good, that's what we talk about with people. That's the one thing. Or if something's really bad, that's what we talk about. That's what we talk about with people. We don't talk about the mundane normally. We talk about what's really good, or we talk about what's really bad. Now, if you would say, what's the best thing that's ever happened to you? If you would say it's Jesus, then he should be on your lips. Because gospel means what? Good news. He should be the best news that you have. What now? No, it was a two-part question. You know, that was a good thing. That wasn't the best thing in your life, was it? No. Obviously not. But, you know, there's this aspect of what's on our lips. That's what we share with people, what's good, or oftentimes we share the negatives. That's what we share. That's what people talk about. Everyone is a minister. I've been to congregations and they hand out bulletins and it says the minister is so-and-so. These are the ministers. And they, you know, they're, I guess, credentialed and ordained and licensed, etc., etc. And I've been to other congregations where it says at the very top, everyone's a minister. That's a thought. It's a nice thought. Everyone is a minister. There's a book. It's called The Second Reformation. And in chapter 4, it's called Eddie. And this is a story that he talks about in his book. In this book. Eddie is a slow-moving clerk. And all of a sudden, Eddie wasn't around anymore. So as people went in came to the store, they said, "Where's Eddie? Is he sick?" "Nope," came the reply. "He ain't working here no more." "Do you have anyone in mind to fill the vacancy?" inquired the customer. "Nope. Eddie didn't leave no vacancy." And then, this is what Beckham speaks about in his book. He says, there are quite a few Eddies in most churches today. They leave, and no one notices. Why? He says, well, first, because there's no real sense of the body of Christ in which members are involved in a functioning manner. And second, many, by their own decision, have chosen to sit on the church bench on the sidelines of the action. It was in Ethiopia. They were having major problems. A new government came in. And they didn't like what the church was doing. So they decided to close all churches, all church buildings. Now in Ethiopia there were 10,000 Christians at that time. They closed them all. It was illegal to have a meeting and go into a church building. And what happened then is that an amazing thing happened. There was actually significant growth when they shut the church buildings down. Because in 10 years, a new regime came back in and said it's okay for churches to meet. And they counted all the numbers. There were 100,000 people that were Christians now. Because what it did it forced the church out of the four walls. And the people had to be the church. Instead of going to church. They began to think about what's important in their everyday lives. And this is who many of them identified themselves to be, was a Christ follower. And it's been tempting to me along the way, because what happens so many times, I believe, when we become a Christ follower, we do not say, how can I help people? How can I be His minister out there? When we come to Christ, if we come to Christ, when we've initially came to Christ, it's about because we have a problem, because we're confused. We don't want to fry when we die. We need some healing. We want hope. We want some answers. We need this fellowship. We need something. And initially when we come to Christ, that's where we need to be. The problem is that that's an ingrown understanding of living. It's all about me, church. It's all about what I like. I don't like the songs today. I don't like this today. I don't like the message today. So-and-so didn't smile at me today. And it's me-oriented. And the problem with that is that it can't get past us. There comes a place in someone's life where they find significant healing to the point where they finally make a turn. Where now I come for other people. I come to be a minister. I not only come here, but that's the way I conduct myself in life. What is God calling me to? He just didn't save me from hell. He saved me for a purpose. But I believe the church, the institutional church, the way that is set up, it keeps people immature. It keeps people in the baby stage or the toddler stage, and they don't grow up to be fathers and spiritual mothers, spiritual fathers. Spiritual fathers and mothers, by definition, will what? Produce Christ in others. That's what a father and mother does. They produce Christ. And that's a major problem. A lot of people don't make that shift. Why is that? I think partly it's because, like I said, the way we do church, and that I think we're very lax on discipleship, responsibility, and accountability. And the problem that I've had before with accountability, when you start asking people about their lives and getting involved in people and talking in accountable ways about where they're at, you know what happens? They go to another church. Because they don't have to answer those questions or be accountable or really want to grow.
That's right.
That's the problem.
Amen.
Now, in the New Testament, there was only one church in one city. It says this, Paul wrote to the church at Ephesus, not to the churches. What if all the churches would actually be one? You couldn't hide anymore. There would be major growth. It would be awesome. It's what would actually happen.
Amen.
Aren't you glad you came today? This is one of them happy messages, isn't it? Everybody putting a smile on everybody's face, right? That's why Bill Beckham in his book is called The Second Reformation. You know what the first Reformation was?
Pentecost.
Well, that was more than just a reformation. That was a transformation.
Yeah.
But in church history, the first Reformation was Martin Luther putting the, how many?
95 Theses.
95?
95 Theses on the Wittenberg church door. Back then, there was only one church. It was called the Catholic Church. And you know what Catholic means? Universal. There was only one church. There was a universal church. And Martin Luther grew up in the church. The only way that you could find forgiveness of sins is to do, I don't know how many Our Fathers or Hail Marys, and pay for them. That's how you get your forgiveness of sins, by paying something for it. And then, he became a Catholic priest. And back then, in Germany, and even in America, or around the world, this is the way it was. When they preached in Latin, but the people only knew German.
That's handy.
People didn't know the Bible. People didn't know the Bible. And the Bible, when was the Gutenberg press? When was that?
1600s.
It was in the 60s. Before that, there was no written Bible that came out to everybody. But one of the first books that was ever printed was the Bible. Then all of a sudden, the Bible was broadcast. And Luther got a hold of a Bible. And he actually started to read it. And it's by grace that we are saved, by grace through faith, and that not of ourselves. It is a gift of God, lest anyone should boast. All of a sudden, he had a conversion. He placed his faith in God and the cross and his resurrection. And Martin Luther, he became radical. He believed that people should be released, that they could know God too. You don't have to go through a priest to know God, or through the sacraments to find grace. You can get it right from God himself through Jesus Christ. That was the amazing thing. Bill Beckham is talking about the Second Reformation. That was a reformation somewhat of theology and the way the church does its practice. Ecclesia. We were talking about ecclesia, right? Have you ever heard the word ecclesiology? Ecclesiology is how church is done. That's how you do church. It's the ecclesiastical practice. It's how the called out ones are to practice their church. Bill Beckham says we need a second Reformation. We need to release the people. And I think he actually did that in one of his churches. They closed on a Sunday morning, and they met in people's homes so that people would actually be the church. From the beginning of time, out of God's creativity, He planned to use men and women who have known and experienced the good news of Jesus Christ to be His personal messengers. Humanity can think or invent thousands of ways to proclaim the gospel, but as far as God is concerned, the best medium will always be those who are equipped with their first-hand experiences. Now, if we haven't had a first-hand encounter with Jesus, there's no way that we're going to talk to people about Jesus. If we haven't had a transformation from the inside, there's nothing really to share with those. But you know, as well as I do, the best people that are going to walk with drug addicts have been what? Former drug addicts. The best people, the best teachers are not those that got straight A's without trying. The best teachers are those that struggled to learn themselves. Because they know how to break things down. Isn't that right? This is Carrie's last Sunday. Isn't it?
It is the last Sunday.
All right, Carrie, come on. Come on up here. I said, what's this have to do with you? Well, how old are you, Carrie?
28.
Okay, you're 28. I mean, in different ways, you grew in your Christian faith, but there was always a lid on you.
Yeah.
And it was about you to a great extent because you couldn't get past yourself.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
She is not unique. For many of us, we can't get past ourselves. We can't get past our own problems. We can't get past our own judgments. We can't get past ourselves. We can't, we're still, when are you going to finally get it all together?
On the other side.
I mean, I've had this thought before. Just stay here. We'll get to you, Gary. I've had this thought before. It was probably around 26, 28 years old. I'm not going to really get into the ministry or the things that I believe God has called me to until I have my act better together. It was a little, I don't know, a couple weeks after that, I just kind of laughed. When am I going to ever have my act together? This will never happen! This is never going to happen! If you wait till you're perfect, you'll never get anywhere. God uses ordinary people. You start stepping out, it's amazing what God could do in your life. But here's Carrie. She came to this place in her life. You wanted it. You didn't like that spot.
No. Hated that spot. But I didn't know how to get out of that spot.
And on the one hand, you wanted to get out of that spot. And the other hand, you were so afraid that you were stuck.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to get out of your spot? You got to want it. How badly do you want it? Because if we didn't, how many would like this congregation to grow?
Amen.
How many are like it? You know what? We are the lid. We here are the lid for future growth.
Right.
If we don't grow, ain't nobody coming in. How many of us would like people to mimic who you are?
I heard a groan.
How many people here would like other people? Because when they're going to come in, they're going to see us. They're going to mimic us. Our attitudes, our insights, our thoughts, our feelings. As we grow, that's when growth is going to happen. I can tell you one great need we have right now. Jen talked to me just the other week. Any of us know Jen? She's sitting back here. If you don't know, just wave your hand. She's a great young woman. Met her several years ago, and I brought her back around through different circumstances. She can tell you the story. She says, I feel, I might not be quoting you exactly right. You can correct me. So many words, she says, you know what? I like this church. I want this to be my church. But I have some small children. And you know what? I want my children to connect to. And I don't know what to do. I personally think that's great. But I personally am already banked out, friends. I personally can't do this. Someone, not one person. I think there needs to be 3, 4 different individuals that say, we're not talking about babysitting. We're talking about walking with kids and talking about Jesus. It's where they're at. You're not going to preach hellfire and brimstone unless you get on there. That's not what I'm talking about. Jesus loves little kids, right? What did Jesus says? He opened his hand and he says, you bring a little child. Little kids love Jesus. Because they get Jesus. You know, as we grow up, we kind of don't get him. You know, little kids can see things that other people can't. But anyway, I don't want to get off the subject here. Anyway, we need some help. But you know what? We're the lid. If people here, why would God bring Jen? Let's just think about it. Why would God bring Jen? Why would God have her talk to me and says, you know what? I fit here. Then she talked about, you know, some of the reasons why she fits here. Remember that one Sunday when I had all these questions that we were to answer. That's the first Sunday she came.
Oh, wow.
And you know, she said, I like this connection thing. And you know what? Some people hate this connection thing.
That's right.
Because they would rather sit.
That's right.
They don't want to connect. They don't want to talk. They want to get out of their stuff. That's the only time Jesus became real to me. When other people got involved. Okay, Carrie. So here you were. You're stuck. See, this all has to. See, we're in this together. So here's Carrie. I mean, I didn't know where she was. She's coming to cell, and it was this one cell meeting where she says, "I really need fellowship." She's like she's dying for fellowship, and I don't know. It spoke to me. I just said, "Wow." You know, I had no idea where she was at. I really had no idea. And you know what? I said, "Man, I know Carrie, but I don't know Carrie." I mean, her family came when she was this little
Tyke.
kid, you know, and little girl, and you know, she grew up, and I sort of know her, but I sort of don't know her at all. And this was sort of us with a lot of people here. Some of the people here, we know them, but we don't know them.
Right.
So I said, you know, I know she's over in Maslin. I said, let's meet at Wendy's over in Dalton. So we are. Just meeting at Wendy's in Dalton one day, and she begins to talk, and she starts to share with me. Go ahead. You could say, I don't know if you remember that time, but I remember some of what you shared.
I think we met in Starbucks first, actually.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was Starbucks. Starbucks out
Facing
there.
into the sun, and the sun's bouncing off the root cars. But yeah, I don't know. I just started just talking about how lonely I was and how I just felt like there was something that needed to break off of me, but I didn't know what it was. It's like I was very content to be where I was, but I hated where I was. It's like this dual, like, I don't know, this combative relationship of emotions, and I didn't know how to escape from it. I didn't know how to correct it. I knew it wasn't right, but it's like I didn't know how to get out. And it's like
But here she is. She's talking like this. And I said, this is going to take some time. And I said, do you really want to get into this? And yeah, she said yes. Now, I've been involved with enough people to know that just because she says that she wants to really get involved in this, when you start getting involved in it, you might not want to get involved in it. I've been deep enough with people. When you start getting involved, half the people back off. I don't know how to say it. I don't know. A lot of people back away. A lot of people really don't go far enough. They get far enough till when they just feel a little bit better, and then that's it. We deal with some of the surface things. We don't deal with the real thing. Well, you know, we went through a process. We got involved. I got involved in it. Got different people involved in it. We started really delving into your life until I remember it was this one time I said, you know, I think you're going to start to experiencing some emotions from that you've never experienced before that are really going to stir you up in a whole nother way.
that was at Wendy's.
That was it. And I just knew it. You know, there's some times where you just know, and to me, I have this, at times I just know. I can't explain it. I believe it's a gift from God. I just know. It's like I have no doubt about it. This was one of those little to no doubt moments. And I just knew. I said, this is what's probably going to happen. I think, was that on Thursday we met?
Yeah, I was trying to remember what day, I don't know. It wasn't very long after.
It was on the next Saturday.
Yeah, that Saturday.
What happened?
I was still doing the PowerPoint at that point in time, and I was looking up pictures, and I was like, I'm just looking for a sunset. So I'm just looking through Google Images, looking at sunsets, and then suddenly I just felt this overwhelming sense of anxiety, to a very heightened degree, and then also I remember thinking, you can't talk. You don't have a voice, you can't talk. And my brain is saying, this is ridiculous, Carrie. You just open your mouth and you talk. And I remembered I'm like, okay, well, Ron said if this happens, to call him. And I was like, but I can't talk. I was like, no, you can. And I kind of talk myself through it and get through this extreme anxiety that I had not experienced this degree before, and really talk myself through. It's okay. You can make a phone call. You do have a voice. You can do this. And so I called Ron. It was really hard, but I did.
You were emotionally messed up. You were crying on the other end of the phone.
I didn't understand it.
But all of a sudden, I think on that moment, you and I connected. First of all, it was easy to minister to Carrie because she wanted it and she was willing.
Right.
The biggest problem that you have is not your problem. It's the unwillingness to open it all up and trust somebody else's leadership to walk you past it.
Right.
The biggest problem that we have is not our problems. It's the barriers that we have in our life that prevent God to get in there. That's, we wall ourselves in and we wall the answers out. The wall just went, whatever little wall there was, it just vanished at that moment. And all of a sudden, it's like you've gone out far enough away from the safety of the shore of your life. Now now she's out in the ocean and she can't see the shore either way. That's a scary place. That's where she was. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And the very young part of her that was triggered didn't have a voice.
Right.
That's exactly right. And so, anyway, we walked through all of that. And then finally you got some healing. And it was, how long did this take?
A year and some months.
Okay. All right. So, because we want something, boom! That's not what's going to happen, friend. And she worked at it. I'm talking worked at it. And it's on the one hand, it's scary. And what I mean by scary is that the few words that I would say to her, the different words that I would say to her, she would just suck them up. It's scary when you have that kind of voice into somebody's life. Because I just say, God, I want to say that thing. That's a trust. Carrie's walked through that, and she's walked to the point where she has found significant healing, and now she's at this place where it's not about you, it's about what's God calling me to. It's natural. But most and many of the Christian churches were in this place where it's about We have moments when we've gone over here, but this is where we're at. So you've launched out.
Yeah.
And you never thought this was ever going to happen, did you?
No.
Okay, and for some of us, we've been in our place for so long. We've already given it up. This is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I'm never going to get over this. I'm never getting beyond, because this is who I am. No, you're not. That's not who you are. That's who you've come to think who you are. Is anything too big for God? We're going to miss you, Carrie. Now, here we had a relationship where I was more of a teacher and a counselor, minister to Carrie. Carrie and I have grown to a relationship where we're more a partner in ministry now. Because it was sometime after that where we got into this elders thing. I was praying about it. I sensed I needed to ask you, and so, okay, I asked you that, and what were you thinking?
I'm leaving soon. If I get into a mission thing, then I'm leaving soon. Like, why? Why would I do that?
But you did pray about it.
I did pray about it. And then strangely enough, since I was supposed to do it, and I was like, well, this is just confusing now, but okay.
Do you see the value in it?
I do. It's been good for me. It's given me a focus. It's helped me to look beyond myself and, preach my first message, and, that's something I never thought I was going to do either.